Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today on Xi Jinping. We're going to try to understand this leader's recent actions and why they matter to you now. Covering everything about the leader of China in one go, that's impossible. But we got a great selection of sources, news articles, in-depth reports, even some potential meeting transcripts to give us a solid overview.
And having those different perspectives is crucial when we're trying to understand someone like Xi Jinping, whose decisions have ripple effects all around the world.
Okay, so before we jump into the whirlwind of his recent activity, let's take a step back. Who is Xi Jinping? I mean, beyond just being the leader of China, what's his story?
Well, to understand Xi Jinping, you have to understand his past. He was born in 1953 into a prominent political family. His father was a high-ranking member of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. So you could say politics was in his DNA from the start.
A real political dynasty. Right. But I read that his early life wasn't exactly a walk in the park.
That's right. He lived through the Cultural Revolution, a period of intense social and political upheaval. In China, from 1966 to 1976, imagine seeing society turned upside down, traditional values being questioned, and even your own family facing persecution. That experience had a profound impact on him, shaping his worldview and approach to leadership.
So growing up in a political family, navigating the chaos of the Cultural Revolution, it sounds like the kind of experience that would make someone value stability and control above all else.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we see in Xi Jinping's leadership. He rose steadily through the ranks of the CCP, gaining experience in consolidating power. And in 2012, he became China's paramount leader, holding the top positions in the party, the military, and the state. That title, paramount leader, is key because it signifies a level of authority and control that goes beyond just being the president.
And since then, it seems like he hasn't stopped for breath. Seriously, this man is a whirlwind of activity. He's got a planned visit to Russia in 2025. He's pushing for major economic reforms. He's even talking about the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership.
What's fascinating is that it's not madness at all.
Is there a method to this madness?
Every move Xi Jinping makes is carefully calculated, part of a larger strategy to solidify his power, both domestically and on the world stage. He's playing 3D chess while the rest of us are still trying to figure out checkers.
I'm starting to get a little intimidated here.
Yeah.
But let's break this down piece by piece.
Okay.
First, there's this planned visit to Russia in 2025. Can you paint a picture of what that might look like and why it matters?
Imagine Xi Jinping in Moscow, standing side by side with, mention the current Russian leader in 2025. This meeting signifies a deepening strategic partnership between China and Russia. Two powerful nations aligning themselves on the world stage.
That's got to raise some eyebrows, right? Two major powers like that teaming up. What are the implications of this alliance?
Well, think about it. This partnership could reshape global geopolitics. It challenges the existing world order, the balance of power that we've grown accustomed to. And that has implications for everything from global trade and resource access to military alliances and technological development.
So this isn't just some abstract political drama happening on the other side of the world. It could directly impact our lives.
Absolutely.
Right here, right now.
The price of goods you buy at the store, the stability of the global economy, even the security of your country. All of this is connected to these shifting global power dynamics.
Okay, deep breaths, everyone. Let's move on to the economic front. China's economic growth has been a major story for decades. But our sources are painting a bit of a mixed picture. On the one hand, Xi Jinping seems determined to make China an industrial powerhouse.
He is absolutely committed to transforming China into a technological and industrial powerhouse. He wants to dominate key industries globally, especially in areas like artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and advanced manufacturing.
But at the same time, China's dealing with rising debt, a slowing property market, and ongoing trade tensions with, well, a lot of the world. It's like they're trying to build a skyscraper.
That's a great analogy, on a foundation of sand. And it highlights the incredibly complex balancing act that Xi Jinping is attempting. These economic reforms are essential for China's long-term stability and its global ambitions. But implementing those reforms without triggering a major economic crisis is a huge challenge.
And the stakes are incredibly high, not just for China, but for the entire world. If China's economy stumbles, the ripple effects will be felt everywhere. It makes you wonder, can she pull this off?
That's the billion-dollar question. It's a high-wire act, and the world is watching to see if he can maintain his balance.
Speaking of balance, one of the things that really jumped out at me from her research was this new emphasis on emotional intelligence.
It is a surprising development.
I mean, Xi Jinping, the strongman leader,
For years, Xi Jinping's leadership style
talking about feelings.
has been characterized by strength,
Color me surprised.
control, and a very top-down approach. But this focus on emotional intelligence suggests a potential shift, a recognition that maybe
He's going soft on us.
there's more to leadership than just giving orders.
Trading the iron fist for a velvet glove. Or is this just a clever tactic? A way to appear more relatable on the world stage?
It's too early to say for sure, but it's a detail worth paying attention to. It could signal that Xi Jinping is recognizing the importance of soft power, the ability to influence through persuasion and understanding. He might be realizing that to achieve his ambitious goals, he needs to be more than just a strongman. He needs to be a leader who can connect with people,
So maybe it's not about going soft,
build trust, and inspire cooperation.
but about becoming more effective,
Yeah.
more strategic.
Exactly. Think about it. If Xi Jinping can better understand and respond to the needs and concerns of others, both domestically and internationally, it could make him a far more effective leader. It's interesting you mention effectiveness, because it ties into what we were discussing earlier about Xi Jinping's global ambitions. He's not just focused on domestic power, he's actively working to expand
Right.
China's influence on the world stage.
And to really grasp that,
Yeah.
I guess we need to look beyond China's borders and examine some of his recent diplomatic moves, like his trip to South America in over 2024, for example. He visited Brazil and Peru. What was the significance of that trip?
That South America trip was a key piece of his global strategy. For years now, China has been steadily increasing its presence in Latin America, investing heavily in infrastructure, energy, and agriculture.
So it's all about resources then, securing access to raw materials.
Resources are definitely part of the equation to fuel China's economic engine, but it's much more nuanced than just grabbing resources. It's about strategically positioning China for the future. They're building relationships,
Yeah.
forging alliances, and creating a network of economic and political dependencies.
So it's about more than just buying soybeans or securing oil contracts. It's about becoming a key partner,
Exactly. In these countries' development.
like Brazil, for example. During Xi Jinping's visit, he met with President Lula da Silva, and they discussed a wide range of agreements, from trade deals to cooperation in areas like aerospace and renewable energy. So they're not just buying raw materials, they're investing in key industries, becoming partners in Brazil's economic growth.
Precisely. It's a much more sophisticated approach. It's about long-term strategic positioning. China's playing the long game, anticipating future needs and securing its place in a rapidly changing world. And these partnerships in South America are a crucial part of that strategy.
Okay, so we got the South America trip, but then there was that meeting with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. That one seemed a bit out of the blue, didn't it?
Yes, that meeting was intriguing.
Especially considering the tensions between China and Australia in recent years.
Relations between China and Australia had been strained for several years, with disagreements over trade, human rights, and cybersecurity. There were even concerns that China was trying to exert undue influence on Australian politics.
So what was the point of that meeting then? Was it just a PR stunt?
I think it was more than just a photo op. It signaled a potential thaw in those frosty relations, a willingness from both sides to find common ground and rebuild trust.
It seems like Xi Jinping is willing to play the long game, even with countries that have been critical of China. Is that a sign of pragmatism?
I think pragmatism is a key element of Xi Jinping's leadership. He understands that China can't afford to be isolated.
Recognizing that you can't always get what you want on the world stage. So sometimes you have to work with people you don't entirely agree with.
They need allies, they need trading partners, and they need to find ways to navigate a complex and often unpredictable global landscape.
So these diplomatic trips, they're not just about shaking hands and taking pictures.
Exactly. They're carefully calculated moves in a much larger game.
And that brings us back to the big question that we keep circling around. Is Xi Jinping's China a force for good in the world? Or is it a threat to the existing world order? It feels like such a complicated question, doesn't it?
It's not an easy question to answer.
There are so many factors to consider. On one hand, China's economic rise has lifted millions of people.
And I think it's important to avoid simplistic black and white thinking. The reality is that China is a complex and multifaceted country.
Out of poverty and driven incredible technological innovation. But on the other hand, there are valid concerns.
And Xi Jinping is a complex and often enigmatic leader. There are aspects of China's rise
about their human rights, record their aggressive military expansion
that are undoubtedly positive.
in the South China Sea, and their ambitions to become
And there are aspects that are deeply concerning.
the dominant global superpower. So how do we as individuals make sense of all this?
That's where informed engagement comes in.
How do we navigate this changing world order with all its complexities and uncertainties?
We need to stay informed, educate ourselves about China's history, culture, and political system. We need to understand their motivations, their aspirations, and their concerns. We need to be aware of the potential risks and challenges, but also open to the possibilities
So it's not about retreating into fear or hostility.
for cooperation and mutual benefit.
It's about understanding dialogue.
Exactly. And finding ways to engage constructively even when we disagree. China is here to stay. They are a major player on the world stage, and their influence will only continue to grow. It's in everyone's best interest to find ways to coexist peacefully and productively.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that starts with informed engagement.
So we've talked about Xi Jinping's background, his focus on economic reforms, his diplomatic moves, and this intriguing hint of a shift in his leadership style.
It is a lot to process.
And it all points to a leader who is determined to make China the dominant global power. A leader who is willing to use every tool at his disposal to achieve his goals. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Xi Jinping, where do we land? We've examined his past, analyzed his recent actions, and tried to make sense of his global ambitions. What does it all mean?
Well, it's clear that Xi Jinping is playing for keeps. He's not just thinking about the next election cycle or the next economic quarter. He's thinking decades ahead, envisioning a world in which China is the dominant power, shaping global norms, and setting the rules of the game.
And that's a pretty daunting thought, to be honest. I mean, it raises some big questions, doesn't it? What does this mean for democracy?
Those are precisely the questions
For human rights? For the balance of power in the world?
we need to be grappling with. It's crucial that we don't shy away from these tough conversations. We need to be aware of the potential risks and challenges, but also open to the possibilities for cooperation and mutual benefit.
Right, because it's not all doom and gloom. China's rise has also brought about some undeniably positive development. Hundreds of millions of people have been lifted out of poverty. They made incredible advances in technology.
It's important to acknowledge the positive contributions.
And infrastructure.
Yeah.
And they become a major player
China has made to the world. Their economic growth has been a driving force.
in global efforts to address climate change, in the global economy. And their investments in developing countries have helped to improve living standards for millions of people. So it's not a simple equation of good versus evil. It's a much more nuanced and complex relationship.
Exactly. We need to move beyond simplistic narratives and engage with the reality of China's rise in all its complexity. This means recognizing both the opportunities and the challenges, the areas of cooperation and the points of friction.
It's about finding that balance, isn't it? Between safeguarding our own values and interests.
Precisely. While also engaging with China constructively and finding common ground where we can...
It's not about appeasement or confrontation. It's about finding a way to coexist peacefully and productively in a world where China is an increasingly powerful and influential player.
And that brings us back to you, dear listener, because ultimately the future of this relationship, the shape of the world we live in, depends on all of us. It depends on our willingness to stay informed, to engage in thoughtful dialogue, and to advocate for our values, while remaining open to understanding different perspectives.
It's a challenging task, but it's one we can't afford to ignore.
The stakes are simply too high. The choices we make today will shape the world for generations to come.
So as we conclude our deep dive into the world of Xi Jinping, we leave you with this question. What role will you play in shaping the future of this complex and ever-evolving relationship? We encourage you to continue your own exploration, to seek out diverse perspectives, and to engage in thoughtful conversations about China's role in the world.
Because the more we understand each other, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the forces shaping our world.